Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast, hosted and sponsored by the members of GrandTheftWorld.com. That's what keeps us going, not advertisements and sponsors and show reads. No, it's you, the audience, that keeps this show going. Tonight in Grand Theft World history, we've got a bunch of stories. We've got stories like before the election happened, FEMA had decided to pass up some houses in Florida affected by Hurricane Milton, and they said no help for you if you got a Trump sign. So that's kind of like validating some of the worst fears that Americans could have, that the government agencies that are supposed to be objective took on some political rhetoric of their own at a time of their most dire need. So we're looking at stories like that, but also as you heard, there was an election this week, and I don't know if you heard about it or if it was off your radar. I do know some people that knew nothing about and they're just fine. They're not upset or having tantrums or anything. So it seems like only people who got emotionally caught up in the rhetoric of the politics are adversely affected. We'll take a look at that during the show tonight. We also have the Democrats are searching for 13 million lost votes. Have you seen them? You're going to see the signs on the milk cartons coming out soon, because the votes that showed up for Biden in 2020, they did not show up this time for some reason. We have to look at that trend and why maybe those are lost. And we also have to take a look at why the Democrat audience maybe is so upset, because their expectations were set someplace by their media, and then reality came in someplace else. And that upset gap right there was really made evident this past week. In fact, simultaneous to the election, we found out that it also overlapped with the Democrat week to post your update of mental health to TikTok. So I'm sure that was just a coincidence that all those videos came out this past week. George Clooney's attempt to be the second Sinatra has now been officially deemed over, since he's getting to be the scapegoat for getting Biden out of the race. As you remember, a couple months ago, they did a big billionaire fundraiser for Biden where they all realized he was kind of non-compos mentis, and they demanded that they have a new candidate be selected. They didn't have a primary. There were no votes. They just changed candidates, which, if you remember, in 2016, under Hillary Clinton, they replaced Bernie Sanders without an election. Like, he won the primary. He was the candidate, and they put in Hillary Clinton. So the two biggest failures in the Democrats' recent history seem to be tied to internal not following the rules on their own side, but a whole lot more. Because when you take into effect the mainstream media telling everybody it was going to be 98 degrees outside and it turned out to be freezing, that doesn't help either when they gaslight their own audience. Again, people outside that audience didn't bother us in the least bit. We see things as not red team, blue team. We see things as a more objective, overarching, supranational, globalist endeavor to take away freedom of people everywhere on the planet, not just in America. But a lot of people do get caught up in that red team, blue team moment. In specific reference to that is the new 4B movement, which was not just something pioneered over in Korea to resist the patriarchy. It's now coming to, blue spots on the map near you. You'll be able to recognize these people practicing 4B. They're going to have blue bracelets, apparently. We'll get to those clips later tonight. So first and foremost, let's kick off the show with Luke Radowski from wearechange.org and thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Let's get his report from earlier today, and then we'll get into the news of the week.
Well, it looks like we got a new top hit song. Why? Talk about some dark MAGA metal there, as of course, that's going to be my new ringtone. As Donald J. Trump is set to become the next president of the United States, as already before he is in the Oval Office, there has been a lot of tremendous change in the larger political and cultural circles, as there are some larger concerted efforts in order to, of course, derail his Make America Great agenda, his America First agenda, but especially with the preemptive firings that he just did, it looks like he's actually on a good course, as a lot of people are speculating what's going to be happening now. Is he going to keep his promises? So far, I am absolutely impressed by Donald J. Trump and the people that he has around him that clearly are listening to the people online and implementing policy changes even before he takes the Oval Office. As a lot of the leftoids, a lot of the woke crowd, a lot of the establishment still look too stunned to even comprehend exactly what's going on here, as other people are saying, it's just a little bit too quiet here, as CNN even couldn't believe themselves when they talked about all the records that Donald Trump has personally broken this specific election cycle.
Holy Toledo. All right, Trump gained ground in 49 states and the District of Columbia compared to 2020. I went back through the record books. When was the last time a party gained in so many different places? You have to go all the way back to 1992 when Bill Clinton improved upon Michael Dukakis's performance in 49 states, plus the District of Columbia. The bottom line is no matter where you looked on the map, Kate Baldwin, no matter where you looked, Donald Trump was improving on where he did 4 years ago, except for Washington State. It is no wonder that at this particular point, he looks like he's going to be the first Republican to win the popular vote since George W. Bush back in 2004. And
to pull that off, he gained ground with groups that Republicans do not generally count as part of their winning coalition, or it really at all.
As very flippantly, a lot of the other networks like MSNBC are literally looking at all these people who voted for Donald Trump and calling them racist and bigots, especially the Latino men that they're really angry with now. As it looks like a lot of their kind of larger propaganda strategies have absolutely failed, and they didn't work. As of course, the media strategy between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris was almost completely polar opposite of itself. As Kamala Harris's campaign has gotten way more money, spent a lot more of it, and still somehow ended up in $20 million in debt, as we're also finding out that she spent six figures for her interview with Call Her Daddy that didn't even get 1 million views. While, of course, refusing to sit down with Joe Rogan, who now we're also finding out was asked to give up editorial control over his own podcast, as the Kamala Harris campaign would demand edits of a live, unscripted podcast as a major stipulation for her to sit down with Joe Rogan. And as I said before, Joe Rogan didn't need her. She needed Joe Rogan, and she, of course, refused to have a real, legitimate 3-hour-long conversation. All of this as Donald Trump's conversation with Joe Rogan already has over 48+ million views just on YouTube alone. This being one out of the 10 reasons why on the day before the election, we told you Donald Trump was going to, of course, win it, and he did. As now, Joe Rogan is urging Donald Trump for unity, as he just came out with a very urgent message right before just endorsing his presidential candidacy, saying this:
we got a real chance to make real change. This is like one of the first times ever where there's a real chance to make real tangible change that's going to be for the good of everybody. Yeah, he's got to unite people. He's got to not attack the left and not attack everybody. Let them all talk their shit, but unite. Now it's time to unite everybody.
Well, 100%. And then there's even more guys. Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yes, Vivek.
David Sachs. I mean, he's got some really smart guys who are very successful, who are really Vivek's incredible, just excellent and totally brilliant and so right about so many of the major issues.
Yes.
And look, I mean, Donald Trump now, he has a real mandate, which is like, this is kind of what's crazy. This isn't 2016.
And I would absolutely agree with him. Instead of just focusing on a lot of the people that react to him and, of course, try to distract him, focus on the goals, focus on the campaign promises, focus on the issues that actually matter to the American people that would, of course, allow your legacy to be set in stone as someone that, of course, didn't just react to people poking and prodding him, but more importantly, acted in a steadfast way that ignored all of those haters, ignored all of those attacks, and implemented policies and changes that actually were for the greater good of this country, its people, and, of course, its future. And I think Donald Trump is doing that, but there are a lot of things that are, of course, trying to stand in the way of that, as I do believe there is a larger concerted effort by the military-industrial complex to specifically steer him away from that. As just a few hours ago, we got news of an Iranian plot to take the life of Donald Trump, as 3 people have been charged, a part of a, quote, Iranian government plot to hire a hitman to take his life just 1 month before the U.S. presidential election in October, from new documents that were just unsealed by the DOJ and the FBI. As, of course, a lot of this, to me, has to be questioned. I want to see the evidence. I want to see what's going on here. The few photos we got of the tools that these 3 guys were able to, of course, garner, don't look that impressive. They don't look like SEAL Team 6, I'll just tell you that. As the equipment that they had was some of the cheapest, worst equipment you could have when it comes to, of course, carrying out a task for a, quote, assassination. As the men were reportedly offered $500,000 to take out businessmen living in the United States. They weren't successful in doing that. As allegedly, these guys were also told to delay the plot because they thought Trump would lose the election. As, of course, the documents revealed that they were after 2 other businessmen, but also allegedly Donald Trump at the same time. Again, a lot of this gets kind of confusing here. As my initial reaction from all of this is to speculate is that these guys weren't even capable of making a ham sandwich. As it is important to note here, there definitely isn't any kind of love affair between the Iranians and Donald Trump, as of course there has been a lot of contention between these 2 particular major powerhouses that are very at odds with each other, especially internationally, especially geopolitically. As right after the first attempted taking of Donald Trump's life, we have to understand here the corporate media all was trying to kind of nudge this larger idea. Hey, maybe it's not the people who, of course, were told to stand up. Maybe it's not the people who failed. Maybe it's this larger country that we've been waiting and foaming at the mouth to bomb for a very long time. Maybe it's going to work perfectly for the larger kind of thing that neoconservatives have been trying to achieve for over 20 plus years. Now, to be fair, there was even an Iranian MP that did put a bounty on Donald Trump's head. But were they the ones that specifically made the Secret Service stand down? No. So, again, I think both of these larger truths could be true here. But personally, I have been issuing my own kind of warnings and concerns about potential larger conflicts unfolding in the Middle East under Donald Trump's presidency that hopefully we could avoid. And I think unraveling the larger problem of what's happening right now in Ukraine would help isolate and clear out a lot of those larger issues and problems. As, of course, if we look at what's happening in Ukraine, the Iranians are involved in it, as their ties with Russia have, of course, been strengthened through the larger kind of trade policies that they have kind of implemented, along with a lot of the military advanced tech that they keep sharing with each other. The Iranians give, of course, the Russian drones. The Russians give the Iranians air defense systems, fighter jets, and, of course, even helping them
this
with
is the ideal mailbox
satellites that, of course, they will be using for their own personal defensive and offensive possibilities. As, of course, taking a step back, looking at this geopolitical situation, this is something that is extremely serious that needs to be dealt with in an extremely careful, smart way. Now, will Donald Trump deal with it in a thoughtful way? I actually think so. As, of course, there's a lot of people skeptical of this, but I think yesterday we specifically saw a major move that was absolutely incredible, absolutely critically important to happen, as Donald Trump announced that neoconservative Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo will not be invited to join the White House and his future administration. A move that, of course, had me shocked. I was like, what? He really did this? As, of course, there was a major call by a lot of people like Ron Paul, Roger Stone, myself included, and a lot of other independent media types specifically saying, hey, please do not allow the foxes into the hen house. Please do not allow these people with horrible track records, horrible policies, specifically Mike Pompeo, that a lot of people were very concerned about, as Mike Cernovich specifically warned how he manipulated his security clearances to specifically go after Trump loyalists, how he cleared out the National Security Council of Trump backers, how he was for funding the Ukraine war, how he specifically was siding with prosecutors that were going after Donald Trump from the leaked documents case, and of course, more importantly, was plotting to take the life of Julian Assange for the criminal acts of journalism. As Roger Stone wrote a great article talking about why President Trump cannot trust Mike Pompeo, and after predominantly people from the internet, from independent media said, hey guys, I see this as a potential here. We really need to, of course, put a lot of attention on this to make sure that this doesn't happen. The attention literally resulted in policies showing exactly how Donald Trump's team is paying attention to what alternative independent media is talking about, listening to them, and then implementing policies because of them. And that's incredible. As, of course, this major move reassures a lot of us to have trust in the future here, as Dave Smith even took to social media and announced the Stop Pompeo movement is great, but, quote, it's not enough. Right now, we need maximum pressure to keep all neocons and warhawks out of the Trump administration. They have had their time at the table and brought nothing but disaster to the world and this country. America first. Screw the war machine. With Donald Trump Jr. literally responding by saying, quote, agreed, 100%, I'm on it. And this is incredible. This is really awesome. And seeing this type of response instead of something we usually would see from politicians that would either ignore this or even in some ways even get mad at Dave Smith for saying, who are you to make all these demands? Seeing that campaign, seeing Donald Trump's son respond to this positively and say, yeah, okay, we got this, is incredible. I remember being at the RNC this year. No neocons at all. No George W. Bushes, no Mitt Romneys, no Cheneys, no Haleys. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. This is a new Republican Party that, of course, needs the greatest people in our society to come forward and work with them right now in order to truly try to make America great again. And that's awesome. And it's beautiful to see. As, of course, RFK Jr. is literally talking about sending bureaucrats from the Public Health Agency who can't be fired over to the new HHS headquarters in Guam, of all places. Yes, RFK Jr. is now talking about all the people he can't fire. He's going to send them off to Guam, which is a very far place in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that I've been to before, and it's really out of the way. As even the Haktua girl is coming out and saying good morning and free Ross with these AI photos. As, of course, Ross Ulbricht is set to be free on the first day of Donald Trump's administration, as Bitcoin has hit record highs of $80,000 for the first time, as Donald Trump has promised to, of course, free Bitcoin to the world without any kind of draconian rules, regulations, and government oversight that, of course, would hinder its growth and trading possibilities. As, of course, now, with reactions like this, the future looks bright. Now, to add the cherry on top, we have now rumblings of holding the U.S. quasi-private Federal Reserve banking system accountable for all the atrocious actions that they have committed. And with Bitcoin rising to the top, acting like as a potential hedge here, as a potential threat towards the Federal Reserve banking system, this right here sets up an amazing gambit, an amazing game that is fascinating to look at, as the Fed chairman just announced that Donald Trump cannot remove him and that he will not be leaving if, of course, Donald Trump asks him to leave, as Elon Musk officially has endorsed the plan to end the U.S. Federal Reserve banking system. As Elon Musk responded to the Fed chairman saying he wouldn't resign by saying, hey, the U.S. government should just intervene with Federal Reserve policy. As Mike Lee specifically made the comment on Twitter describing how the U.S. Federal Reserve banking system is working in an unconstitutional way and how ending the Fed might be the right policy here, with Elon Musk responding 100%. As CNN Business is reporting that the Federal Reserve, as we know it, could be turned on its head, and it deserves to be. As, of course, that is the plaguing monopoly octopus larger organization that has been suckling away the life and prosperity away from the American public. As it's going to be interesting to see what's going to be happening with this economy, especially with energy reserves being released, drilling being made possible with exploration, as the market has responded very positively to Donald Trump's victory, not just Bitcoin going up, stocks going up as well, as a lot of people are pissed off at this plan, as they're calling Donald Trump and his allies idiots for trying to, of course, mess with the Federal Reserve banking system, the same system that, of course, has been messing with us. Now, with a new SEC chairman, the war on crypto ending, this does highlight a perfect storm that could revision wealth, money, and the future of prosperity of the American public. And I'm all here for it. if, of course, Donald Trump becomes the next president of the United States, as, of course, he is still going to be sentenced November 26th, as there's some people speculating that he could serve his prison sentence for the entire 4 years of his presidency. Now, I don't personally see that as a likely kind of scenario here, but what will happen during his sentencing will be very important to see, as, of course, we will get a glimpse of how the very biased New York, quote, justice system will be reacting towards the next president of the United States. And as someone who's in major financial problems because of a surprise IRS letter that I got saying that I owed them $180,000 out of the blue, I look forward to this personally myself. And it's one reason why we created SaveLukeNow.com. It's an actual website. I hate asking for help, so we decided to sell stuff, limited edition items. I decided to get only 100 of these hats made that I will be personally signing, sending off to you to help me get a lawyer. We're selling them at a premium, but they're, again, limited edition items. They're signed. And we do need the help to get a lawyer. So they help us do that. They're $50. We also have our signs that we're going to make limited edition. We're also going to sign. We're not going to sell them anywhere else. They're only here on SaveLukeNow.com, where, of course, you guys signing up to the memberships, you guys being a part of this independent media organization really does mean a lot to us. And we can't thank you guys enough for all of your support, all of your contributions. And truly, I am extremely lucky to have you guys as an audience. I've been here for 20 plus years, and my life is dedicated towards helping you get an understanding of this crazy, insane, complex world. And if I have ever done that, consider checking out SaveLukeNow.com, as, of course, we have 3 ways. The best way is to become a supporter of LukeUnfiltered.com. Another way, get these limited edition items. And, of course, you could also donate directly, which we greatly appreciate from the bottom of our heart. We got a long...
All right, go ahead, pull it. All right, so there's a lot to cover there. I think the news that Pompeo, who is definitely a creature of the deep state, has not been invited to the party is a good thing. I think Republican Governor Nikki Haley, I think it's really good she's not at the party too. So these are differentiations over what you saw Trump 2016. He got into D.C. trying to drain the swamp, but then he surrounded himself with swamp creatures because, as he explained on Joe Rogan, if you want to bring new people in who aren't vetted, it's very difficult. So once you get there, if you don't have a plan and you don't have your own people, you're just getting whoever's there anyway. This time, it seems, having known that, he, got Bobby Kennedy, and he got Tulsi, and he got Elon, and he got Ron Paul, and he got Jeffrey Sachs, and a whole bunch of other people. So he doesn't have to be the expert in any of those areas, which, as an American, should give you a lot more confidence that he doesn't have to be competent over so many things. He can have specialists who are expert in their areas. So I also found it interesting. We'll see part of the clip later, but Kash Patel, who is he was Trump's Homeland Security director, possibly, or worked in Homeland Security, deputy secretary, something like that. He's favored to be the CIA director, and he has mentioned that he's going to release and declassify the Epstein files and the Diddy files and that sort of stuff. Kash Patel, in an interview with Benny Johnson, we're going to see a clip from it, but it might not be this clip, so I'm going to tell you about it. He said something to this effect. I will paraphrase. He said, the J. Edgar Hoover building, the FBI headquarters in D.C.? He's like, yeah, there's about 6,000 people there. He said, I think we should make it into a deep state museum and take the 50 people we actually need and put them in a basement someplace. And he's like, and that's how we deal with that. And I thought, well, that's a bold plan that you probably shouldn't have stated before you had the power to conduct it and carry it out. But, everyone's got their different strategies and tactics. I don't want to question the forthcoming CIA director. I'll just trust maybe he knows what he's doing. But Scott, what did you think of that first block?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's all kinds of fun stuff here. Gosh, I don't even know where to start. So basically, what kind of just do off of what you were just saying there about swamp creatures and all that stuff, it's like it's starting to formulate the same thing. And, it seems that the best way to become a part of Trump's administration is to have at any point in your history been vehemently against Trump. If you're if you're a, what do they call it? Never Trumper, right? If you blamed Trump for January 6th,
if you called him Hitler, you could be VP.
If you called him Hitler, you could become vice president, right? So Chris LaCivita, who was the senior advisor to Trump's campaign, he brought him up at his acceptance speech or his that night. He was, very adamant that they should have invoked the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office following January 6th. He said it was an insurrection fueled by Trump's lies, right? So, like, these are the people that are running Trump's inner circle. You know what I'm saying?
I think it was probably the 20 million missing votes that caused people to show up. That the votes that showed up that year that are now missing. Yeah. I think they're the ones responsible. They should be the scapegoat. Those votes. Not George Clooney.
I agree. But then you have people like Project 2025, like all those guys. Like there's people that were in Trump's former administration who were a part of Project 2025 who are like, big time, like America First Trump supporting people, right? And those are the people that get disavowed. So if you're an actual Trump supporter, you get disavowed, you get sidelined, you get called all kinds of names. But if you are against Trump, then you get invited into his inner circle and become part of the administration, which is just, it's crazy. It's really crazy how that works. So
it's amazing how he can transition enemies into friends.
Yeah, which I've actually heard people say.
Enemies into allies could be his next book if he ever wrote one in the first place.
Yeah, and it could be, I've heard people say keep your enemies closer. Like it could be a strategy, it could be a tactic. 5D chess. Like
I do believe that he keeps Machiavelli on his nightstand, but I don't know about Mein Kampf.
Yeah, exactly.
I would believe he keeps the 48 laws of power on his nightstand, but not Mein Kampf. Like you just went too far with the hyperboles and that's it. We'll get into those clips later. We'll also get into this. Where is the button? We do have clips about how 74 million Trump voters died this week they drowned in a stream of liberal tears. Apparently, we don't have those clips yet. They're still setting up their lights and cameras and tripods, but we will have those clips later in the show tonight when it's important.
Twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week course. It teaches leadership, entrepreneur skills, executive skills, all these types of things that I saw were taken out of our education system in order to make the schooling or indoctrination system that we've all probably went through. And it has served us well enough to be interchangeable cogs in the machine of the globalists. But if we want a homestead, if we want write our own ticket, work from home job, work from anywhere type of situation, they're not exactly handing those out at the end of college. They give you a piece of paper and they're like, good luck. So reality is dropping us off here, but the demands of reality are up here. So I created Autonomy to help people close that gap for themselves so they can level up their skills to the demands of the situations that life is putting in front of us presently. Life's demands of intellect and understanding precision and complexity are ever increasing. The schooling didn't prepare us for it. The media is not going to do anything but reinforce what schooling prepared us for. And so we're going to have to take a leadership position and take steps off the beaten path to kind of blaze our own trail in life. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.